Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission Podcast. My name is Rebecca Toomey, and we are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through your life and with your relationship with Christ. We have been in a series on homeschooling, and today we are welcoming Sabrina Freeland. She is the Teen Pact Tennessee State Coordinator, and she's been married to Brent for 28 years. They homeschooled their 4 children, Hannah, Brock, Corrine, and Emma, for over 22 years. All 4 are in or have graduated from college now, and Teen Pact was a big part of their homeschooling experience, especially while their children were in high school. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But Sabrina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So first, let's just dive right into it. What really encouraged you or motivated you to homeschool? Why did you go the homeschooling route?
Yeah, so I grew up public school, and my husband grew up in public school, and we graduated in the 80s. I have a brother who is almost 12 years younger than me. And in the 90s, when he was in elementary school, my parents, for some reasons that things that were being taught to him in public school, they decided to pull him out and homeschool him. So I was in college, but when I would come home from college, I would help facilitate his classes and do things with him. And then when I graduated college, I was living back at home and helping my mom homeschool him. And I went on to teach public school for 10 years. I was an elementary school music teacher.
Okay.
And I just always felt led that I wanted to homeschool my children. So when I met my husband, or when I met Brent, who would later become my husband,
Yeah.
I was very honest from the beginning that I wanted to be a homeschool mom. And he had never really known anyone who homeschooled, but the more I told him about it and he learned about it, he was on board with that. And it was just never a question in my mind. Everyone homeschools when they come home from the hospital. And we just kept on going. We never
Okay.
stopped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How was that journey from public school? Because you mentioned that you taught in the public school system. How do you feel that that jump kind of differed for you?
Right. So I had some very wise counsel early on from a veteran homeschool mom, even before our oldest was school age. And she said, because you're a former public school teacher, you're going to need to lose your public school ideas
Okay.
and the way of doing things. So I just listened to that advice and didn't really focus on a desk and a schedule like we
Mhm.
did in public school. So we learned that flexibility early on. And it just, God was gracious, and day by day we figured things out. You don't have to know everything when you start, thankfully.
That's awesome and such good advice. I hear so many moms who were elementary school teachers, had kids, stayed home with their kids the first couple of years. Now they're getting to kindergarten and they're saying, I don't know what to do. I kind of want to homeschool, but I don't feel like I can school my own kids. And I'm like, you can do
Hmm.
it. You can
Absolutely.
homeschool your own kids. If you can teach in a classroom, you certainly can, but you have to throw out
Absolutely.
what you know about schedules because
Yes, absolutely.
so that's very good advice. Now, I know another area that we've kind of been talking about on the podcast about homeschooling is that there's this misconception that homeschoolers are not socialized and, are not around people and all this kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I mean, I was homeschooled. I have found that to not be the case at all. If anything, we were doing too much sometimes and had to pull it back.
Yes.
But
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about community and how you built community with your children.
Sure. And I joke and tell people through the years, look at the amount of miles on my van, and you'll know how socialized or unsocialized our children are.
Sure.
We, as when they were young, we did play groups, neighborhood, which when they were so close together. There's just over 4 years between all 4 of them because the last 2 were twins, that we stayed close to home a lot.
Mhm.
Our church was just a few miles away. We did Awana and Sunday school, things like that. Had neighbors we played with, but as they got older, we ventured out. Our kids did 4-H. They did band, orchestra. We were in quite a few co-ops through the years, just depending on our season of life and where we were living and the needs. Every year it looks different.
Yeah.
And then when our oldest was 9 years old, and this will date me back when before Facebook groups, there were Yahoo groups. And I saw a post about this 1-day field trip to the state capitol, and we lived near Raleigh, North Carolina. So I signed up our daughter to go on this field trip. And a few days before, I said to my husband, I said, look, I signed up Hannah for this field trip to this Teen Pact leadership school on Friday. They're going to go do a Capitol tour and learn about the Capitol and all that. I said, she's done her homework. Do you want to take her to that? Or do you want to go to co-op and be in the nursery with the little kids all day? And he was like, I'm doing the field trip. So off they went. And when my husband came home with Hannah, he said, this is an organization we're going to want to be around for a while. It's top notch. I was really impressed with what I saw. I just think we're going to want the other kids to do this as well. Mm-hmm. And for my husband to say that carries a lot of weight because he's pretty particular about certain things. And so the next year I signed up Hannah, and Brock was old enough at that point to go. And my husband eagerly volunteered to take both of them that year, which I think he took them out for pancakes at lunch. But anyway, that's besides the point. And so they went that year, and we left North Carolina after that and missed out on Teen Pact for a couple of years. But then when they were opening the class here in Tennessee. And so then in 2014, we were here in Tennessee, and through some relationships we had with Teen Pact, I was asked to help start the Tennessee class. So I went as a chaperone with our oldest, Hannah, who was 13 by this time. And I took her there. We didn't know anyone. There were 21 students, and I was the chaperone for the girls' cabin. And a little side note here, Hannah didn't really want to go. And she put off doing her homework to the very last minute, and then she got the flu. Oh, so no. we got to class a little bit late because we had to wait till Monday morning to leave so that she was fever-free long enough. And she didn't have all her homework finished. But I said, well, we've paid for it. We're going to go do the class anyway. Mm-hmm. Long story short, she didn't participate all week. I called my husband and said, we just wasted our money. Like she's not participating. That weekend, we get to my brother's house visiting him before coming home, and I overhear a conversation with her and her cousin. And she was just going on and on about how wonderful it was and all the things they did. And I thought, well, that little sneak, she was learning. So needless to say, we kept doing it. That summer is when I became the state coordinator. Because the state coordinator who had done it, he took a different job and wasn't able to do it. So I started coordinating, and our daughter went back the next year loving it. And it's just been gung-ho ever since for all of our kids.
That is just awesome and hilarious that she was just very introverted almost about her experience with you, but with other people was very much like, no, this was awesome.
Yes. All the way there to Nashville, from Knoxville to Nashville, I got the side eye. You know that look from teenagers? She was not happy. And if she hears this, she'll laugh because she knows she wasn't happy. She's heard me tell that story many times.
So I would love for you to share with listeners a little bit more about Teen Pact. What exactly is it? What is your mission? What are you trying to achieve in the community with teens? And then it sounds like it starts around 8 or 9 years old.
Yes. So the 1-day class, which is on that Friday of the week of class, is for 8 to 12-year-olds. And it's a condensed version of the 4-day class for 13-year-olds and older. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly homeschoolers at Teen Pact. We do have occasionally students from private school or public school if their calendars line up. But generally speaking, it's homeschoolers because they're the ones with the flexible schedules, which is one of the reasons we enjoyed homeschooling. Yes. And so Teen Pact is this hands-on learning experience for students to learn about government, but also leadership. And I have parents tell me all the time, my kid's not interested in government. My kid's not interested in that. And I say, that's fine. My children weren't really interested in it either.
Mhm.
But all of our children will hopefully be voting citizens once they turn 18 years old. And they need to understand the political process.
Mhm.
And what better way to learn it than in an interactive environment where they're not just sitting and reading a book or listening to a lecture, they are participating in a mock legislature, in a mock election. They're
Mm.
hearing from speakers like the governor and the Speaker of the House, lobbyists, judges, state senators, state representatives, all these people who are involved in our state government, and letting our students understand the process and that they can be involved even before they're 18 years old.
Mhm. That sounds a lot more learning than most children are getting when it comes to being educated about our government and how it works. It's
Yes.
kind of more like you said, you're reading a textbook, you're learning dot dot dot. That's
Yeah.
so cool to hear that they're participating in things to really learn how the system works.
Yes. And when their lunch is a working lunch because they're in their committees reading through bills and voting on bills to either kill the bill in committee or pass it through, they're learning the process. And it just thrills me when I'll get a text or a phone call or an email or something from a parent later that says, my child's watching C-SPAN, or my child is reading up on the bills that our state legislature is considering. Just they understand more how it works once they participate in that mock setting.
I bet. Have many of these children that have been through this gone on to go into government, would you say?
So I know through Teen Pact, there have been a few who in across the country. Now understand Teen Pact is in all 50 states.
Okay,
So
that's good to
whoever's
know.
listening, it's in your state if
Okay.
you're in the US, the 50 states. And I know that there was a young lady in Florida who went on to be a state representative for a few years. There was a gentleman in Oklahoma that just comes to mind. There was a teen pactor who was actually one of the attorneys for President Trump when he was in office. So there have been those students who grasped it and went for it.
Mhm, mhm.
And there are lots of teen pactors who have gone to law school. But more than that, there are teen pactors who are engineers, firefighters, school teachers, a policeman. They're all over in our society, and they're influencing others, and they know how to present what they believe and understand in a kind, polite way,
Mhm.
but yet they know how to stand for what they believe.
Speaking of beliefs, I love the about. It mentions that part of this is also about the relationship with Christ. And
Exactly.
talk to us a little bit about that side of things.
Yes. And so I guess I should, and I'm going to read this because I don't want to mess it up with memorization. But on TeenPact's website, it says that through dynamic experiences, TeenPact seeks to inspire youth in their relationship with Christ and train them to understand the political process, value their liberty, defend the Christian faith, and engage the culture around them. Changing lives to change the world is more than a vision statement to us, it's what we do every day. So, for a student who comes to our 1 day class or the 4 day class, they're going to sing songs together in worship. They're going to hear a devotion. We're going to pray together, and they're going to learn to apply scripture to their lives as they're deciding who they want to vote for. This isn't just about who you're going to vote for president or federal elections. This is
Mhm.
about our state elections, our city and county elections, being involved at every level to influence the world for Christ.
Wow, very cool. It's deeper into your local community. It's not
Yes,
just about the larger, every 4 years election type of
right.
thing. This is my
Yes,
community where I live. How can I positively influence my community?
exactly. Because we need leaders in our homes, we need leaders in our churches, we need leaders in our communities, and we need leaders who are following Christ. And it's encouraging our students that even at a young age, they can make a difference. And I will say that although not many teen pactors have gone on to be public officials, they're making a difference. There was a young lady at National Convention this year who talked about how she made a difference in her home state after one of her brothers died, and just how she had learned through the political process to make a difference that way, even before she was 18 years old.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Now,
Yeah.
in the state of Tennessee, are all of the classes in Nashville or are they kind of all over the place?
No, we go to the state capitol. So
Okay.
you can be so for the 4-day class for the 13-year-old and older, they can be a commuter or they can be a camper. So the campers, we stay out at Deer Run Retreat, which is about 30 or 40 miles south of Nashville. And once they are dropped off at the camp or at class on Monday, we transport them back and forth with parent volunteers and the camp bus.
Okay.
And so we use the Capitol for field experiences that we call them, where they learn about the legislative branch and the executive branch and judicial branch, lobbyists, all that. And then we meet in the classroom space in the conference center of the library downtown. So it's just a short walk back and forth to the Capitol. But then when we go back to Deer Run, they change out of their dress clothes and get into more comfortable clothes, tennis shoes, what have you, play games there at the camp. And then we have worship at night and a devotion from the class director. And then we play some group games and then go head off to cabins, sleep, and start over the next day.
Oh, very
For the
cool.
1-day students, parents come with them. They're required to have an adult with them because of the scavenger hunt at the Capitol, and 8 to 12-year-olds don't need to be without their parents in downtown Nashville. And so we again have a time of worship, and they go do a scavenger hunt in the Capitol, have lunch, and then they do their mock legislature, mock election, and all the good stuff.
Wow, that's very cool. And
Yeah.
I can
And
see
for that Friday, I should point out, for
yeah.
the older students, the 13-year-olds and older, they finish their 4-day class on Thursday. We have graduation on Thursday afternoon. So on Friday, they have an optional class called the Political Communication Workshop, which is where they learn to communicate what they believe in a kind, effective manner. And it gives them a better understanding on communication. And especially, when you're articulating and communicating political ideas, as we all know, it can get kind of rude and nasty pretty quick, especially on social media. And so they learn how to be thinking critically with these controversial issues and to communicate effectively so that people will listen to them, or they're more, maybe perhaps would listen to them more than if they were just, not communicating very well and very politely.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I can see your passion behind this. It's very inspirational. I love it.
Yes. And, I will say that, obviously our children did lots of other things in school, but TeenPact was a big part of all 4 of their lives. And with TeenPact, the leadership side is just as important in our family, or it was, as the government side. And all 4 of our students went on to our children went on to staff in TeenPact and to travel with TeenPact to other states to staff those classes. And they make friends all across the country. Once you attend a 4-day class, then you can attend alumni events. So we have judicial, Congress, business, media, all these things that help students pursue their passions, to see how they could be used in society as adults through these things they enjoy, or to perhaps find out, oh, I don't like that as much as I thought I would, but I like something different. So it's really helped a lot of students figure out what they wanted to do after high school, whether to pursue a degree in college or join the workforce or go to trade school. And it also gives them an opportunity to connect with Teen Pactors across the country, not just in their home state. And so the biggest event for alumni is National Convention, which is held every May. I guess the past 10 years or so, it's been at Lee University here in Tennessee. But that has over 1,000 Teen Pactors and chaperones from across the country together for a week. And they do a national election where they elect a president and vice president, senators and representatives for the whole Teen Pact nation. So once again, they get exposed to the political process all over again.
Oh, that's neat. That's very
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. A lot of good speakers come in, a lot of worship and devotion, small group times. It's a lot of fun.
That's very cool. So you've been involved for 10 plus years now.
10 plus years. Yeah, I've been I went as a cabin mom in 2014, and in 2015, I was the coordinator that year and been coordinating ever since. And my husband is a class director. And like I said, all 4 of our children went through staffing it. So it's been a big part of their homeschool journey.
So for listeners that are tuning in, if you want to learn more about Teen Pact, I have a couple of links here. I will link them in the show notes, but you can visit Teen Pact. That's TeenPact.com. You can also find them on Facebook at facebook.com/Teen Pact, and on Instagram, same thing, Instagram.com/Teen Pact. And if they want to reach you, they can reach out to Sabrina Freeland, because you can help them out to get set up for their workshop session, I'm sure.
Yes. And in Tennessee, we have it 3 different weeks, and you only attend 1 week. So they can go to teenpact.com/TN. And if they're in a different state, just change the abbreviation to your state abbreviation, and you can find the information there for your home state.
Perfect. And these workshops, they're running every month, every quarter. How does it go?
They run every spring. So we'll have our first week. The first week of February is when we'll have the first Tennessee class. Then we have 1 week in March, and another one. We actually added our 3rd week last year because we were full in the first 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we will have a class. It begins the last Monday in April and goes into that beginning part of May. That'll be our 3rd week to have Teen Pact. And I will point out that if you register in September, that's the biggest discount. So to save money, especially if you're sending multiple students, registering in September saves you the most money. It's an automatic discount on the registration. And then October 1st, the price goes up a little bit. And then 60 days before your class, it goes up some more.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good timing.
Yes. Yes. Perfect
for those
timing.
Listening today. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So aside from Teen Pact, what would you say are some of your favorite parts about homeschooling?
We love just being around our children. So being together was fun. We treasure those times, those moments. I'm a travel agent as a job. And so we were able to take lots of fun trips with our kids that we know we couldn't have done had we not been homeschooling. Lots of good memories, traveling internationally with our kids and having lots of fun experiences. We called them field trips. So we weren't on vacation, we were field tripping. And our children still love to travel with us even now as adults. That's a fun part of our family memories, and what we've instilled in our kids, I guess you could say. And just being together, and making those memories, whether here at home or traveling somewhere, we really enjoyed that.
Yeah, flexibility is a really awesome thing about homeschooling.
Absolutely. And it allowed our children to do a lot of other things because we homeschooled. Our children were all involved in 4-H and, excelled at that as well. And some of ours did orchestra, one of them did band and art lessons, just lots of things we wouldn't have been able to do had we not homeschooled.
Absolutely. Now, we do know that with all the fun, there are some challenges. So what was the most challenging part of homeschooling for you? And was it different when you were in the moment versus now reflecting back?
Yeah, looking back, a lot of the things that I thought were horrible then don't seem so horrible right now. So, I wish that I had not really worried about so much. And not that I worried about a lot, but just some of those things that math, oh my gosh, it's always math. Does anyone ever finish math? And so just looking back, I could have just let up and not worried so much. And we like to have fun, and sometimes the having fun messed up the schoolwork sometimes. But, if you instill a love of learning into your child, they're going to figure everything else out.
Mhm.
And so our children all learn to love learning, and they know how to learn. And so, I'm happy to say they're in college or finished with college, and they know how to learn and figure things out on their own. So whether or not that science experiment got done or that last math lesson got done doesn't really matter in the long run.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It
Mhm.
isn't, and that's a different part of homeschooling, right? Is that it's not always about the doing things exactly or
Right.
doing things the same for each
Right.
child because every child is very different. How they learn
Absolutely.
is different, their
Mhm.
personalities, what they prefer. And,
Absolutely.
I'm sure that you had four very different children.
Absolutely. And even our twins, they were in the womb together, but they're still very different.
Yeah.
And their learning styles were different. A lot of their interests were the same, but they still have their own tastes and personalities. And
Mhm.
just tailoring their education to their learning styles and what they needed, certainly the homeschooling flexibility was key for them, for all four of our children.
Now, because your kids were close together, were they about a grade apart or were they further than that?
Every 2 years.
Okay, every 2
Right.
years.
Yes, we had
Okay.
we had them every 2 years. In the grades, they were every 2 years apart. And
Did
I
you
will
find
say,
that to be challenging? Did you find that to be almost easier because they were kind of in the same pocket together?
I never thought of it either way. That's just the way the Lord gave us our children, and I went with it.
Mhm.
We used a curriculum called Tapestry of Grace. That's a
Okay.
whole nother podcast. But because of the way Tapestry of Grace is set up, they're all studying the same time period, even though they're reading different books. We were all learning about Abraham Lincoln around the same time. Or,
Oh,
I
interesting.
didn't have one in world history and one in American history and one in Tennessee history at the same
Okay,
time.
okay.
We were all learning the same time period at the same time. So we could have discussions about that going
Mhm.
on. And, we were learning about ancient Rome. And then we were in Rome, they had all learned about the Colosseum. I didn't have one who hadn't learned about the Colosseum yet,
Mhm.
so that I loved Tapestry of Grace. That was a blessing that the Lord just dropped in my lap when our oldest was going into first grade. And we used it pretty much the whole way through high school for our kids.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question was, did you use the same curriculum all the way through?
Yes, we used Tapestry pretty much. It's a 4-year cycle, and
Okay.
we got through 15 years of it. That last year, when our twins would have been doing the last year, they were already doing dual enrollment and they didn't need the history or other things. So we didn't do Tapestry. So it was
Mhm.
a sad moment for me. I wasn't prepared to not do it. When I realized we didn't need it, I was like, oh, I didn't have any closure there. But
Yeah.
yeah, Tapestry was a really good experience for us.
I'm so glad you mentioned dual enrollment. That was gonna be my next question was, did any of your children do dual enrollment?
Yes, they did. Actually, all four of them did.
Awesome.
And different to differing degrees. One of them
Yep.
had, I don't know, 6 or 9 credits. A couple of them had like 16 or 18.
Okay.
The last one had 24.
Okay.
So the more I figured it out, the more I let them do it. So
The
that
more
was
they
a good
did.
experience. And most of ours did Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee.
Okay.
We used a few others. Our son did a couple of others because he was one of those during COVID. And so things were,
Okay.
derailed a little bit.
Yeah.
But they all ended up being all online. He wanted to go in person, but then that school didn't. We registered him with that school thinking they were going to be in person, and they changed it at the last minute.
Okay.
So they all ended up doing it online. But it was a good experience and prepared them for college, and
Mhm.
saved us a little money, hopefully, in the end.
Sure. Did they
That
all start
Tennessee grant
around
is really, really a blessing.
Yes. Did they all start around junior year?
Yes.
Okay. And
Hmm.
then all of them did it online. That's interesting. Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Actually, another thing wonderful about Tennessee, and this could be a whole nother podcast as well, is two of our four children did a fifth year in high school. So when I say they started junior year, one of them started her senior year, but then had another senior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Was
Yeah.
there a reason why you guys chose to do that?
Yeah. Different reasons for each one of them. One
Okay.
of them she wasn't ready to talk about college.
Okay.
And I called Home Life Academy and was like, I don't know what to do. And the senior counselor was gracious and just talked me off the cliff and gave me all these options. And that 5th year was the one that worked for us,
Okay.
and took the burden off our daughter immediately. And she was 110% for it. And it worked out really well. She just graduated college in May. So it was a good decision there.
Good.
The other one had some health issues, and having that extra year in high school to work through those health issues was a blessing. And she's the one who ended up with 24 college credits when she
Okay.
moved off to Rebecca this fall. So
Okay.
yeah, it worked out for both of them.
You mentioned Home Life. Is that the umbrella?
Yes, we were with them for 13 years.
Okay. So if you're in
Hmm.
the state of Tennessee, Home Life is a great umbrella option for
I
homeschoolers.
loved it. Yes, their counselors were amazing. I registered every Thanksgiving weekend to get that 25% discount, and I was ready for the next year. So, yeah, they were great. All through high school, even just up till I requested that last diploma this summer. They were wonderful.
Awesome. So, is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience homeschooling or encouraging words for parents that maybe they're new to this or maybe they're struggling? Any words of advice?
I always, as I look back on our homeschool journey, I see how the Lord was so gracious to put veteran homeschool moms in my path, even when I didn't realize at the moment what a blessing they were to me. I can now look back and see how when we were in Virginia, before our kids were even school age, and those moms who just gave me wisdom. And then when we moved to North Carolina, in our church, I found this community of homeschool moms, and they took me under their wings. They had children my kids' ages, those were their youngest kids, but they had older kids also. So they had already been homeschooling for a while, and I was able to learn from them. And even after moving to Tennessee, just finding those moms who had homeschooled and learning from them. That's my encouragement to new homeschool moms, is find someone who's been doing it for a while and listen to the advice.
Mm.
Don't go in thinking you know it all. Go in thinking, what can I learn? And listening, and not just maybe one homeschool mom, but just find some who've walked that path, and have someone who can answer a call when you need help, or take a text, and give you that advice you need when you need it.
That's great advice.
Hmm.
Wonderful advice. Anything else that you want to share today?
Just enjoy the journey. Homeschooling is a blessing, and it's it's something that, as a parent, no one else can do it like you.
Mhm.
And just know that the Lord equips you. And you don't need to know algebra when your child's in kindergarten. And
That's right.
actually, you don't really need to know algebra when your child is in algebra, because there are online helps and there's tutors if you don't know how to do it. So
That's right.
it really just, embrace the journey and enjoy it. It's such a blessing, and help your child to find what interests them. And every child's different. Just encourage them to find the way the Lord created them, and what created them to be and do, and let them explore and explore until they find that path.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sabrina, for joining today and for sharing all of this. This is awesome.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Awesome. And I'm going to share her information again. If you want to get involved in Teen Pact, be sure to check out the website teenpact.com. You can find on Facebook and Instagram at Teen Pact as well. And thank you, as always, for listening and tuning in and being on this journey with us. If you would like to follow along outside the podcast, join the mission on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at The Radiant Mission. And today we're going to close with a verse that Sabrina shared. That's one of her go-tos when it comes to homeschooling, and that is Psalm 78:4. We will not hide these truths from our children, but will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord. We're wishing you a radiant week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.